At this time, we're going to move into our program. Temple Beth tours a long history of their cantor preparing what is essentially a sermon and song as part of this evening's program. So Cantor Neff, along with Cantor Frank, have worked very hard to create this beautiful program for us tonight, which is called Sing Unto God a New Old Song. And in a moment, we will all begin to understand what that actually means. So without ado, Cantor Neff.
The air in the room just changed. A minute ago, it was Havdalah, but now, all of a sudden, the spiritual scent of the High Holy Days is beginning to permeate. I have heard this tune since I was a baby, but only at this season. Virtually everyone in this room who is Jewish will have heard that tune since earliest childhood. It turns us around and brings the seasons suddenly into sharp focus. Music is a very powerful communicator of meaning and emotion. It has carried our spirituality forward over the centuries throughout our wanderings through the melodies that we sing. Jewish music is a sacred tool that helps us to find our way through a prayer and understand what it means. The role of the cantor as the selector and transmitter of Jewish music can be daunting because the music that we choose can have the power to transform. It can help illuminate a text, or if we pick poorly, it can distance us from the spiritual potential of the moment. This year, as we begin our first High Holy Days as the Reformed Temple of Rockland, the cantors face an even more challenging problem: the melding of two strong and beautiful musical traditions. For each congregation, their High Holy Day music, choreography, worship space, choir with and without extra hired voices, organ or lack thereof, cantor, etc., are extremely important spiritual communicators. Change only one element, the location, for example, and already the holidays will feel wrong to some people. Change multiple elements, as we must, and we face a spiritual crater before us. Can the High Holy Days work for us if we must cross this chasm to get there? This year, we feel we are in a musical and spiritual diaspora, a strange new land. Given an open mind, some patience, and a willingness to open our hearts and our ears, we may find that truly the landscape is not so foreign, and that we can make a home for ourselves within it. One important key is to remember that our songs and traditions are not from Sinai. Not even the most ancient elements of them. At some point, everything old was new, and everything beloved was strange. It reminds me of one of my favorite stories. A new rabbi comes to a synagogue, and the members of the congregation are showing him around. Our tradition, says one member, is to bow when approaching the bima. How interesting, replies the rabbi. Why do you do that? Well, nobody present has any idea why they do that. It's just what they do. Well, one day, an old man returns to his synagogue from Florida, and they ask him. His answer, Oh, our original building had a low chandelier right in front of the bima. We had to bow our heads to avoid hitting them on the chandelier. The tune with which I began the lecture this evening is one of a whole series of melodies, many of which we sing on the High Holy Days, which are traditionally referred to as Mi Sinai melodies, melodies from Mount Sinai. They received this name because they seemed to people to be so ancient, so powerful, so holy, that people believed they must have originated at Sinai. The truth is, they did, and they didn't. The tunes themselves were derived from German folk ballads of the Middle Ages. They're relatively new as far as the grand scope of Jewish music is concerned, but it is the soul behind the music, along with much of the synagogue music that we sing, that we can believe comes from Sinai. Music that has the power to move us spiritually, whether or not it actually derives from Moses' time, surely comes to us from the soul of Judaism, and is, therefore, Mi Sinai. It has the comfortable aura of old familiarity. Traditional Jewish music is based upon a system called nusach. According to Dr. Lawrence Hoffman, nusach is the record of musical syntax, the association of certain sounds with certain events and seasons in the sacred calendar. Nusach distinguishes between times of day, seasons of the year, between Shabbat and the work week. It is the musical language of prayer and communicates the structure of the spiritual calendar in a far more visceral way than words or texts can, if you'll pardon me, rabbis. Nusach is the sound of sacred time. Mi Sinai tunes are a part of the musical themes or motives that are contained within our Nusach tradition. So the Nusach tradition is based upon the Jewish modes. In Western music, we have two modes, major, la 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 la, and minor, la 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 la. Well, there's variations on minor, but I'll pick one. The Western modes are based on a single scale that is the same in every octave. These modes help communicate the mood of a piece of music. So take, for example, Frère Jacques. A change completely transforms the mood of the piece. Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping, Brother John? You can sing with me. Morning bells are ringing, morning bells are ringing, ding, ding, dong, ding, ding, dong. So in this example, our poor little brother John is sleeping through his alarm clock. But sing it in minor. Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping, Brother John? Brother John, morning bells are ringing, morning bells are ringing, ding, ding, dong, ding, ding, dong. And suddenly, we are concerned for poor John's health and safety. The Jewish modes are more complicated. They sometimes change notes depending on the octave and also have certain common motives contained within. They're more than just scales, but really almost a language of their own. There are three primary Jewish modes, Magen Avot, Ahava Rabbah, and Adonai Malach. And to show you what I mean about them being more than scales, I'll tell you just a little bit about Magen Avot as an example. This mode is characterized by a 1-5 opening motive. And I hope I'm not just speaking in music ease here, but we'll try, okay. So 1-5 opening moment, dum, dum, and often concludes by 4-1. Dum, 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 da, dum. The middle phrases of the melody sung in Magen Avot will sometimes hint at the relative major. There can be long stretches on a single recitation tone, so a mode may have a scale, but it's much more than a scale, incorporating characteristic moves and turn the phrase. So here's a typical example in the mode Magen Avot, and I'm going to stop and point some things out as I go. Elu Devarim, 1-5, typical opening motive. She'ein lahem shiur, she'adam ochel protehem ba'olam hazeh, a whole bunch of notes singing on it, or as we said in cantorial school, right, Harriet? Where's Harriet? Yeah, okay. Cantorial student. Ve'akeren kayemet lo la'olam haba, and here's your 4-1 end, ve'elu heim. Okay, so it's similar to minor, but there's just a whole lot more to it. And there's also compound modes. It's said that if Rip Van Goldberg, a traditionally Jewish man, were to fall asleep in the woods for 20 years and then wake up and walk into a synagogue, he would know immediately the day of the week, the time of the day, and the season of the year based only upon the music that he just heard there. As modern Reform Jews, we do not always stick strictly with the Nosach when selecting our music, but we do use it to inform our choices. So as Cantor Frank and I sat down to select the music for this year's High Holy Days, we carried on our shoulders the weight of two congregational traditions, thousands of years of Jewish history, traditional and modern tunes, and the expectations of hundreds of congregants that they would be spiritually moved by what they heard. No small task indeed. So we open our High Holy Day prayers with these words. Behold me of little merit, trembling and afraid as I stand before you to plead for your people. O gracious God, the one enthroned by Israel's praises, compassionate and loving, accept my petition and that of my people. Let them not be put to shame because of me, nor I because of them. Sinners though we are, let our prayers come before you innocent and sweet and pleasing, as though from hearts more worthy than ours. Let love be the banner we raise in your sight, and let that love conceal all our sins and make them as though they had not been. Change our afflictions to joy and gladness, our misdeeds to acts of life. May our love of truth and peace remove all that hinders us from sincere and fruitful prayer. O God supreme, God of every age, God eternal, let my prayer find favor. For the sake of the righteous, the loyal, the honest, and upright, and for the sake of your own glorious purpose on earth, for you are the one who in mercy hears our prayer. Blessed are you who hearkens to prayer.
This setting of Hineni, you're going to hear musically an emotional tableau, a rainbow of expression. You're going to hear humility. Who am I? Who am I to go before the Almighty and ask for forgiveness, not just for me, but for the assembled and for the Jewish people? Fear. I can only slightly comprehend your power and magnificence. Awe over the grandeur of the Supreme Being. Angst. I understand too well that I have fallen short, that we all have fallen short of our own expectations, if only that. And what will that mean? And joy, because you are there for us and our people to forgive us through atonement. Hineni. Hineni, hineni heani, mimas, nirash nifchat b'pachad, yoshev tehilot לששון, לששון ולשמחה, לחיים לחיים ושלום, לחיימך ושלום, אהובו ולא יהיו שום מכשול בתפילתי. לששון, לששון ולשמחה, לחיים לחיים ושלום, לחיימך ושלום, אהובו ולא יהי שום מכשול תפילתי. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא,
I think I need to get the music to that. That's beautiful. So we must begin by listening. After all, the Shema, the central prayer of our faith, demands that we open our ears and listen. The mode of the Shema for the High Holy Days is simple minor. Pinchas Spiro's book, one of the standard sources for the traditional Nusach, notates the Shema of the High Holy Days this way. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That's it. The melody is sparse. It doesn't have the declamatory feeling of the Shema that we're used to hearing on Friday night. In fact, it's so simple that it almost doesn't define its mode. Change one note and it becomes major. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. One note difference. What is the message of this Shema? It almost seems to speak pleadingly to the people. Just quiet down. Just take a moment to stop. Listen. Interestingly, the melody reminds me of a modern setting of the Shema by Tzvika Pitt. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Now, this setting is not written for the High Holy Days, and I've never sung it on the High Holy Days, and I don't plan on singing it on the High Holy Days, but it's interesting how similar it is. The beginning is the same, Shema Yisrael, it's the same interval. Despite the similarities in the tune and the fact that they're both in the minor mode, the Shema is totally different. It's cheerful, folky, and participatory. Its message seems to be about joining together in community, to listen together and pray together. Also not a bad message for the High Holy Days, but I'm not sure I can imagine using it during the High Holy Day season, because to me, the melodies of this time of year need to be set apart. It cannot and should not feel like any ordinary Shabbat. The melodies are a big part of what makes this season stand out as different. Now, at both Temple Beth El and Temple Beth Torah, we have sung Zoltzer's arrangement of the High Holy Day Shema. I grew up with this tune. Zoltzer lived from 1804 to 1890, yet his melodies have become so iconic that many people believe that they are from Sinai, even though they aren't even considered Sinai tunes. Zoltzer wrote the Shema that we sing on Friday night. The Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And he wrote the tunes for the Torah service. Ein kamocha, pick a key. Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kemasecha. Perfect, thank you. And here is his Shema for the High Holy Days. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Now, how many of you thought that was ancient? Come on, I can't be the only one. Okay, there they come. There come the hands. This Shema is so different from the Spiro. It's still in the minor mode, but to me, it feels dangerous, like a warning. Something terrible is about to happen. The gates are closing. Our time is running short. The time to listen is now. It's a very powerful melody, made even more so by the Temple Beth El tradition of singing it in 4-part harmony. Many times the difference between how TBT and TBE sang a melody was whether or not it was arranged in harmony. Temple Beth El did the Shema in harmony. Temple Beth Torah did not. Temple Beth Torah did the Unatana Tokef in harmony. Temple Beth El did not. When these instances came up, we chose to go with the harmony. Not to make life more difficult for our choir, though it certainly did that, but because the music of the High Holy Days is elevated, and because the existence of harmony does not stop anyone from singing the melody as loudly as they please. It only makes that melody sound richer. So the Shema is an example of a place where the change that we made was minor. No pun intended. Generally, our discussions were simple. We chose the piece that we agreed was more beautiful, or the one that we each felt was more important to our congregants or our choir members. We tried to keep the things that were beloved and therefore sacred. There was really only one piece that we fought over, the Barosh Hashanah, the most liturgically and spiritually challenging text of the High Holy Days. The Barosh Hashanah prayer declares, on Rosh Hashanah it is written, and on Yom Kippur it is sealed, who shall live and who shall die, who by fire and who by water, etc. Not light reading. When I came to Temple Beth Torah, they were using a traditional melody for this and sang it in an upbeat tempo. To me, it sounded happy. And I had a problem with that. I tried to get everyone to slow down the tempo, to think about the text and sing it that way. But when something is ingrained, it's really, really challenging to sing it differently. And finally, I gave up and introduced a few alternate melodies over the years, finally settling 2 years ago on a new melody that I have grown to really love. Mayer Finkelstein's beautifully communicates this text in this modern setting. Rosh Hashanah yikatevu uvyom som kippur yechatevu v'rosh Hashanah yikatevu uvyom som kippur yechatevu Kama yavrun v'chama yibareyun mi yichyeh u'mi yamut mi v'kitzor u'mi lo v'kitzor Rosh Hashanah yikatevu uvyom som kippur yechatevu v'rosh Hashanah yikatevu uvyom som kippur yechatevu Rosh Hashanah yikatevu uvyom som kippur yechatevu v'rosh Hashanah yikatevu uvyom som kippur yechatevu Mi yanuach, mi yanuach, mi shakit, mi tarev, mi shalev, mi yasar, mi ye'ani, mi Don't even bother sitting down, because you're going to have to stand up for 1 second again. So when we got to Rosh Hashanah, I was ready to push for this piece that I had fallen in love with. But let's remember, this is a piece with almost no institutional memory, although I did see a few people singing along. We've only sung it for 2 years, and with no tradition behind it. Temple Bethel's tradition was, you guessed it, the same traditional melody that had caused me such grief. This was the one and only real disagreement that Cantor Frank and I had, and she argued passionately for the tradition. And in the end, I decided that she was right. This was tradition for both congregations. This was tradition for communities all around the world. And since she assured me that the Temple Bethel community was used to singing it slower, I agreed to return to the tradition. And I will tell you, having gone through the choir rehearsals, I don't regret that decision, as you'll hear.
that in the music. We had to do that from memory.
I wasn't expecting us to go to the end, but it works for me. It was beautiful.
We had to find a way out of that.
Yeah. Well, surely you can agree that there was no wrong choice here, provided that both are sung with spirit, passion, and understanding. If you look at the Talmud, you will see that Jews never agree on anything. Everything is a conversation. Every law is a debate. Over the next few years, we at the Reformed Temple of Rockland will be creating a musical Talmud. The melodies will morph and change and develop until they become our melodies. A few years ago, a woman asked me to sing the traditional Misha Berach prayer. How does it go? I asked her. Misha Berach. In a few short years, it will feel as if the melodies we sing are the ones we have always sung. Torah and prayers are our written heritage. They are the concrete blocks upon which Judaism is built. Religion requires something more. The letters in the Torah would make no sense without the white spaces found between them. Something gives the letters context and meaning and helps them to communicate their message to us. This is spirit. This is music. The melodies of the High Holy Days have an almost mystical power over many of us. They snap our minds to attention and stir us, even the most skeptical of us, into moments of self-reflection and repentance. Hearing unfamiliar refrains will be a spiritual challenge for us this year. But I invite you to engage in those moments of discomfort, to open your ears and your hearts, to allow the uneasiness to lead you to new spiritual places and to a new year where we will sing together new and old songs and even new old songs to God. L'Shana Tova.